There is a popular saying in leadership that if you think you're leading and there's nobody following you, you are only going on a walk. On this platform, you are going to learn principles of leadership. You are going to encounter different leaders. You are going to learn about how you can grow as a leader, how you can make an impact. My name is Samuel Eyim, and I'm the host for the leadership platform. I am a leadership coach, a lawyer by profession, a John C. Maxwell certified coach. I have been in corporate life in senior positions for several years, and now I run the Center for Transformational Leadership, where we train and coach leaders to become better leaders. And I invite you to go on a journey with us as we discuss the subject of leadership in the coming weeks.
This and every Saturday, you have opportunity to ask questions, share your views on important leadership matters.
Hello. Good evening. Good evening to everybody. You are very welcome to the leadership platform. We are excited at the Center for Transformational Leadership to have you this evening share part of your evening with us. And we appreciate your time. We appreciate the value you bring to the world. And so we want to congratulate you for choosing to be on the leadership platform this evening. My name is Samuel Eyim. I'm the CEO for the Center for Transformational Leadership. And at the center, we try to develop people. We share ideas. We have coaching programs for all levels of leaders. We encourage corporations and those of you who make decisions regarding your training to contact us so we can develop training programs and coaching programs for your teams, make them better leaders. When your people understand leadership better, your work becomes easier. That is why we are here, and that is why we have developed this platform for you and for everybody who is interested in leadership. So once again, you are welcome, and I have my team. Partner Sarah Jesse Apia is on the line. The back office, Kofi, is on the line, and the other team members are there to help you. So please introduce yourself by whichever means you are connecting with us. Send your name into the comment section. As you realize, we're using StreamYard and you're connecting either through your Facebook or YouTube. So let us know who you are, where you are coming from, so we can know you and acknowledge your presence. You are all very, very welcome. This evening, we are going to discuss another very important subject as we explore various aspects of leadership and share with you ideas that would empower you to make impactful leadership. So the subject for this evening is developing your portfolio of influence as a leader. As we have said consistently on this platform, leadership is not about your position, it's not about authority, it's not about your title. Leadership is about the influence that you can bring to the world, that you can bring to people. Leadership is about how you are able to impact the world. So we are trying to unpack this idea by bringing you experts and other leaders who have experience in different fields to help us. This evening, I'm excited to introduce our speaker, Robert Marshall Bennin is a great resource for us. He's the founder and chief learning strategist of Temple Advisory. He's a leadership subject matter expert at the African Leadership University School of Business in Rwanda. He's a Marshall Goldfield certified coach. So he understands how to guide people to develop and grow themselves. Robert has 20 years in strategy consulting, it's executive coaching and leadership development. Over 500 strategy and leadership development interventions in South Africa, in Tanzania, in Nigeria, Rwanda, and Ghana. So he has quite a lot of experience across the continent and the world. His key expertise are in strategy and enterprise-wide transformation, talent and leadership development, finance and corporate governance. He has in the past been the dean of the business school, head of the ECM and asset management of an investment bank, and associate consultant at management consulting level. Robert spends his time with leaders across varied industries and discusses strategy and how to transform enterprises. His key strength is in his deep understanding of the burden of leadership while distilling the key issues during coaching sessions. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you would agree with me that Robert is more than able to share his experience with us in discussing how, as leaders, we can develop our different portfolios, different segments of influence. Because at any point you are in your leadership journey, you have influence. But the important thing is to be able to grow that influence beyond what you have now. And that is why this subject becomes so important. So, Robert, you are very welcome to the leadership platform. We are excited to have you. The floor is yours. Take us away. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sam, for that wonderful introduction. I am excited to be here and to share with the team and all the leaders who have joined us from various parts of the world on this broadcast. I believe this topic is so important, developing your portfolio of influence as a leader. And I want to quickly share a story. I'm sure maybe some of you may be familiar with this story, and just to set the tone for our discussion. Because the key to successful leadership today is influence, not authority. There was this gentleman handling a class. This was a primary class in a basic school. And there was this young boy who was disturbing the class. And so the teacher was trying to get this gentleman to just keep quiet and to allow every other person in the class to enjoy the class. And so per the relationship they have had, the student-teacher relationship, the leader-protege, the master-servant relationship, it's been one of authority, and it's something that this young boy had come to resent. And so after a couple of back and forth, the teacher told this young boy to stand up. So the young boy stood up, and what the young boy told the teacher was that, yes, I am standing up, but in my mind, I am sitting down. And this was just a blow in the face of the teacher, because really your leadership is influence. It's not the authority that you carry, and you can't command anyone. Gary Hamel said that in our world today, I mean, everyone is authority others, and nobody likes that. And so as leaders, we need to leverage the power of our influence and to accomplish the mission that we've set out for ourselves. So in the conversation today, we will spend time talking about this big subject, influence, and I call it conversation because I would like us to engage. And Sam and Sarah, I know you will support me here by when we engage, making me aware of some of the comments that are coming up, because it's going to be very interactive. We will examine the nature of leadership influence and how we have been influenced in our own journeys, and also unpack our leadership portfolios. As you said, we lead in different spaces, and so we need to assess the strengths and challenges within these portfolios. And finally, I will share with you a framework for developing your leadership influence, because I believe it's important that all of us as leaders, we pay attention to this big subject. So let's just start our conversation and right away start engaging. I want us to find our influences. And Sam, when we discuss this topic, I have been thinking about my own journey, my life and leadership, and who the influencers have been, and how I have also, in my own way as a leader in different spaces, influenced others as well. And so I want to hear from all of us who have joined us, and you're warmly welcome to our conversation today. And I want to find out from you who has had the most significant influence on your life and leadership. Parents, family, friends, teachers, boss leader, pastor, and what did they do? And so I would like to see in chat, and Sam, you have to help me here, because I will pause for a while and then you can read out some of the comments that are coming in terms of our listeners, the leaders who are on the call, who has influenced them the most. And I know that in our journeys, we've had different sorts of influences. And I believe that some more significant than others. And by the way, when I say influence, I'm referring to positive influence. And so I want you to bear that in mind. So Sam, if you
all right, thank you so much, Robert, for that good beginning. And folks, the question is up on the screen. Who has had the most significant influence on your life and leadership? We would like to have your responses. Cynthia Martinson says, my husband. That's interesting. Eunice Manson says, my parents. So, Robert, you're beginning to have some responses there. We want to know. Share with us. Henry says, a leader. We would like to know which of them have influenced you, your life, and your influence. So share with us as we discuss. So those are the three, but we have more people. We have Laurentia Amma says, my parents. So we are seeing here parents, we are seeing husband, and my leader is there. Anybody else? Let's see. Let's have your Esther Mill says, my parents. All right. So parents seem to be leading so far.
It's not
my
surprising.
Parents from Bridget. Hassan says, my friend. Okay, so friends coming in there. My boss, Samuel Ahiavi says, his boss at work. Kwame JB says, my family. William Kweku says, parents. So we have boss, we have parents. Somebody, Douglas Amwate, has influence on him. Seyi Salami, my family. My classmate, BJ Ben, my classmate, someone has influenced me to listen to you every Saturday. Thank you very much, Mr.
Wonderful. That's a positive experience.
Yes.
Yeah, and so what they did is coming through, because we would like to hear the other part of the question, the response to the other part of the question as well, in terms of what they did. You know,
right.
And in this particular case, the fact that the friend directed him or her to a place where this person could get knowledge and learning that shapes his or her life in a positive way, and that's a great influence.
All right. So yeah. So as Robert said, it's discussion. So come in again. Let's know, what exactly did your husband do? What did your boss do? What did your parents do? Just share a few ideas and let's see, because that is going to also help to see how you are also going to be able to influence others. Let us go. All right. We are seeing both my husband and brother. That's Joyce. What did they do to influence you? Yes. We're waiting for your comments. We got from Ben already. He says that someone has influenced me to listen to you every Saturday. All right. So anybody wants to share? Let's see.
Sure, Sam, I'm sure the responses will come in. And so just take note of them, and I'll pause.
Says, my parents, they had 5 girls and a boy. So there were no barriers in how we were raised. Every sex handled similar responsibilities. Hence, I believe I can achieve anything irrespective of my gender. That is beautiful. Then Eunice. Yes, Eunice says, my dad instilled in me truthfulness. Speak the truth always, no matter what. My mom taught me the forgiving aspect of life. No matter the situation that comes her way, she will still forgive. And I've seen the peace and happiness that comes from that. So that's beautiful from Eunice Mensah there. All right. So those are some of the comments. Douglas Amwati, Willis influenced me a lot to educate myself. Good.
Wonderful.
Samuel here says, my boss provided leadership and training. George Apabli, my minister at church, helped me. All right. So those are some of the comments, Robert, that you are getting about some ways that people are influenced.
No, brilliant, Sam. The conversation is getting exciting already, and we're learning a lot, even hearing from others, because these are giving us clues as to what we can do. So sometime 3, 4, 5 years down the line, in another forum like this, somebody will mention the experience they had with you, and in terms of the influence you had on them. I mean, I believe leadership influence is adding value. That's how leaders do it. And I want to break this down. And I believe that it happens in about 5 ways. First is by the participation, our active engagement in the community, just putting our shoulder to the wheel and executing on the task at hand, just going the extra mile. That is what buys us the influence in our community. We earn the respect of our peers because we're ready to carry the burdens of the day. That's what leaders have done time and time again to gain influence in their community by their active participating. They don't sit on the fence. They are active citizens in their community, and in their workspaces, they take the bull by the horn and they take calculated risk and execute on the tasks that must be done. And so that's one way of doing this. The other way, and we've had that come through already, by the provision we offer to others, nurturing, supporting, helping others grow, providing them with opportunities, opening doors for them, giving them access. And that's how we make our influence felt, because we are adding value, break upon break, access upon access, opportunity after opportunity, a little here, a little there. The support that we give to our family, our friends, our colleagues, that's leadership influence, adding value to those we work with, those we live with, and those within our spheres of influence. Another is just the power of our example. And I heard somebody recounting how her mom has taught her to be truthful and to be forgiving. It's the power of the example this person saw. And as leaders, that's something we need to bear in mind, the power of example, because we're being watched all the time, and our actions have influence on those we work with. our audience, our team members, our peers, and even sometimes our bosses. We influence our bosses. So the power of our example is very strong, and that's a way of having the leadership influence that we need to accomplish our mission. And another is presence. Presence, because great leaders master manners, small acts of kindness, communicate respect for others, engage hearts, and ultimately that increases your influence. Just being there for team members, for family members, but supporting sometimes in difficult moments. That's the way we influence those around us. And these are the stories we're hearing being shared. I mean, sometimes it's just by shaping mindset, shaping vision, giving others a whole new world, opening a completely new world by the conversations we have with them, by the example we show. And this is leadership influence. It's actually opening doors for others. And I will sum this segment up by sharing a quote from Mandela, one that I feel is very instructive, but less quoted. In one of the interviews, Mandela was asked, who is a leader? Who is your hero? And he says, it's not a question of a leader. It's a question of a human being who does something to make another human being to feel that I am a human being and I can go to bed strong and full of hope. And that's the influence leaders bring in our spaces as we engage, as we provide, as we support others, as we provide access and opportunities, and we lead with the power of our example. I will pause, Sam, if you have some comments in the chat box. That will be good to hear. As I mentioned, this is a conversation, and we all have been influenced or have influenced others as leaders, and we can learn together. So I want to hear from what other leaders on the call are sharing. Thank you.
All right. So just following up on the discussion, Ben says, I'm less egoistic in life, but Samuel and his team are making me think differently now. So that is Ben there. Then he says, my boss, Mr. Douglas Amoati, influenced me a lot when it comes to leadership. All right. That is Efua Mantibia says, my boss made me understand that everything is possible and positive attitude is everything. He made me read books and told me not to be afraid in all I do. All right. Joy says, my husband instilled in me patience, and my brother Sam taught me to be a good communicator. All right. So he says, every member of my family is given the right to lead in all aspects and to be responsible. All right. Cynthia says, my husband ensured I leave for work early and encouraged me to be faithful with state funds. All right, that's very important. The way people are chopping our funds, I think this is a good one. And Anna says that has been a great inspiration for selflessness. So those are some of the comments, Robert, and this is absolutely important. The points that you were making about Nelson Mandela. See, it's about one human being making another human being to become a better human being. That is absolutely fantastic.
Exactly. Right. So even though we've shared all of this, there are some myths I believe we need to dispel when it comes to leadership influence. Number one, sometimes we tend to believe that our leadership position determines our influence. No, the story that I told, that scene in that primary 2 classroom tells it all. Your leadership position does not determine your influence, because you can be a leader and have no influence whatsoever on the team members, on your peers and the community that you're leading. As a matter of fact, sometimes it's said that you have no followers, nobody following. And your leadership influence, even when you have ended, is not permanent because it's in a context. You by your participation and your provision, and let me give this example, by your active participation and engagement in a particular leadership position in one company, and that buys you significant respect and influence. And then you, for some reason, you leave this company that you have over a period of 10 years built your influence portfolio, and then you become even a CEO in another company. And then all of a sudden you have to start all over again. Of course, you are respected for what you have achieved, and for that matter, you were employed, you were engaged to come and lead this other business, but it starts all over again. You cannot, as a leader, assume that you're just carrying the influence from the old company to this new business. You will be surprised. You have to start again by the principles we said, nurturing and supporting by the power of your example in this new space with your active participation and putting your shoulder to the wheel. You earn it every day. You cannot say you have arrived. And so it's a myth. Your leadership position does not determine your influence, and leadership influence is not permanent. I mean, those of us who are familiar with scripture, we know the story of the Israelites in Egypt. And scripture says that another Pharaoh came, and this Pharaoh did not know, who these guys are. Who is Joseph? You know, and we can have a similar, we have a similar story. Of course, Nkrumah still carries a lot of influence, but then, the people who were in his day and in his time, they're more passionate about the influence than some of the young people today who have no clue. And of course, they hear stories and sometimes they see the impact. And so influence is not permanent. You earn it every day. And so let's look at the truths. And this is what I say all the time. We are all leaders with different levels of influence and capacity. We're all leaders with different levels of influence and capacity. So today on this call, I am going to share with you a framework that will help you maximize your influence, that will help you take your influence to the next level. Because we have it, but at different levels. And great leaders earn their influence every day. You cannot for a moment rest on your oars and think that you have achieved it all. It's not possible. That can never happen as a leader. And so we need to bear this in mind. We're all leaders with different levels of influence and capacity, and great leaders earn their influence every day. I will pause, and if there are any comments, I will take them. But if there are no comments, we can just move on, because I want us to actually unpack our portfolio of influence, do some examination analysis just to really, for ourselves, get to know where we are in the various spaces we operate and the level of influence that we have. Sam, any comments? Otherwise, I can just continue.
For now, I think there is no, I think was only one comment. I had an ambition growing up as a boy this is Alasan says, I had an ambition growing up as a boy in an impossible environment, but I think they didn't finish up, but maybe Silas or something helped him, because the comment is not complete there. That's the only comment we have so far. Yes, so that's all we have. But you made a point about, when the leadership influence is not permanent, and it's absolutely important. I used to be general counsel of the EcoBank group, and 40 countries, and had several tens of lawyers under me, and kind of powerful. Today, if I go to EcoBank, nobody cares about me. I left 4 years ago, and apart from those who knew I was there, oh Sam, but any other person, Even you ask for something, nothing happens. So you are absolutely right that influence is not permanent, which means we should continue to nurture it. Thank you very much.
Exactly. It's a humbling realization, and we need to earn it every day. Yes. Right. So let's unpack our influence portfolio. And I know that I just put 3 of them here, and I want you to think about these 3: your family or extended family or circle of great friends, and then your workplace, either your department, your organization wide, and then in your community. Sometimes also you belong to a church or a mosque. And so these are the 3 spaces. And I want you to think for a moment whether you believe you have enough influence in these spaces that you operate to be heard, to be recognized, so you can achieve your objectives. Do you have enough influence in these spaces? And think for a moment, because I'm going to ask some specific questions that will help you do that. And I know there are so many leaders on this call, and this is very relevant because we need to think about these questions. My questions are going to come in very soon, but I want you to just think about your family, think about your workspace, and think about your community. And you have objectives. Sometimes there is a view, even in a meeting. In a meeting, you have a view, and it's not really about the idea. That's what we need to bear in mind. It's not about the idea, but the person, the leader who is carrying the idea. And so sometimes the same idea, you present it and it's not accepted. Another person presents the same idea and it's accepted. That gives you a clue about the level of influence you have in your space, in your organization. When it's the same idea, and the humbling realization, the truth is that it's not about the idea, but it's about you, the carrier of the idea. And you may say it's not fair, but that's what it is. That's why all of us, we have to be deeply interested in growing our leadership influence and making sure we have the right levels of influence in these spaces, so we can be heard, we can be recognized, and achieve our objectives. So here are my questions. Question number 1, and I will want you, and Sam, please watch the space for me. I would want you to give yourself a rating, and let's start with question number 1. And so question number 1, we'll say that's question A. So what's your current level of influence with the leaders in your organization? And if you are the CEO of your organization now and you're on this call, what's your current level of influence with your board? So for question A, I will want you to rate your own influence on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being highest and 1 being lowest. And Sam, look at this for me, the answers that are coming in. What's your current level of influence with the leaders in your own organization? You are a leader, you have some leaders above you, and even if you're a CEO, you have a board. What's your current level of influence on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being highest, 1 being lowest? And so we want to unpack, we want to examine this for ourselves so we know what actions we can take. And so please think about it and provide some answer. You can type in chat, or if you have a notepad or pen, write it down for yourself, or keep the score in your mind. It's important that you take stock to know where I am today, and tomorrow, 3 years down the line, you take stock again, and probably you've moved from 4 to 8. So that's question number A.
Okay, all right, and so good. Yeah. Anybody wants to share, you can go ahead and share. But as you said, this is for reflection. Yeah. But if you want to share, that would be great. Good.
And then the second one, what is your level of influence with the peers and team members in your organization? Now, this is with your peers and team members. With your peers, so that's B. Again, on a scale of 1 to 10. And you have to do this. You can, if you would not like to share in the comment section, just know the answer in your mind. But then note that down. The third one.
All right, we are having, Robert, I don't know, we are having some answers here for A. Yeah. We had Marianne says you rate herself 5, Nana Boama 5, Jerry 5. So Yeah. So those
It's a
are
middle of the road
the
scenario.
feedback we have from the first one.
Great.
Marian
The B?
has 8 for B.
Yeah.
Ben has 5 for B. And P.S. Sally has 8. All right, that's high. Stellado has 8 with her P.S. All right, so those are just some feedback for you as you proceed.
Great. And now the big question, the third one, big question, which I would like to see more answers coming through. Where do you need to have more influence? Is it with your leaders, your bosses, or with your team members, or your followers, or your subordinates? Where do you need to have more influence? Is it with your leaders, with your bosses on one side, or your followers or team members? Where do you need more influence? Let's see what comes up in chat, because
all right, here we want your thoughts.
Yes.
Okay, so let's go. Where do you need more influence?
Is it with your leaders or with your team members and followers?
Okay, is it with your boss? Is it with your peers? Is it with your followers? Where do you need more influence? All right. The platform is silent for now, so they're thinking.
They are thinking about it.
True. Bridget says followers. Fuama Tibia says leaders. Mariam says team members, followers. Okay, Ben says bosses. Needs more influence with the bosses. Jerry says leaders. Esther says followers. All right, so those are really the answers we are getting so far. Thank you for active participation.
Well,
Free says both. So I assume it's both leaders and followers.
Where do you need more? Where do you need more?
What? Hello?
Where do you need more? It can't be both. Where do you need more?
Where do you need more? All right. Yeah, so followers and teams. I think with all of them, somebody says, F1 says he thinks he needs more influence with all of them. Sally says all three. All right. So, well, you've been challenged there.
So let's unpack this a bit, because the third question is important. Let's unpack.
All right.
this.
Mary says everywhere. You need more influence everywhere. He thinks. Okay, let's go.
Right. So let's unpack this. Yes, you need more influence everywhere, but you certainly do need more influence with your leaders more than your team members, your peers, and your followers. Let me say that again. You certainly, yes, you need more influence everywhere, but you certainly need more. You need to have a greater level of influence with your leaders, with your bosses, than your team members and than your followers. That's sometimes the mistake that we make as leaders. We feel we must align with our team members and our followers, particularly when we have bosses. Remember, those who have influence to actually affect what happens within the organization are your bosses. And if you want to really create change as a leader, then you need more influence with your bosses, with your superiors, than with your followers. As a matter of fact, within an executive team, it's dangerous for an executive member to think that he needs more influence with his department, with folks in his department, than with his executive team. You are the executive team providing leadership and direction to the organization. And you don't have to be conflicted in your mind. You need to build your influence with your executive team. And when you have to make those crunch decisions bordering on influence, you always have to side with your executive team. Sam, are there any comments coming in? Because that's an important point we need to clarify. And if you get any feedback from any of the leaders on the call, I can definitely come back to this if there are any questions associated with what I just shared.
Okay. Well, just a quick housekeeping. Somebody is asking whether other people have lost the sound or it's just him. Just put one if you can hear us just quickly. If you can hear us, just type one in the column so we know that you are hearing us. Just type one. But otherwise, what Robert's point is that you need more influence. Anybody hearing us, can you type one? Okay, Fua Mantibia, Tete is hearing us, Frank, okay, Joyce, so people are hearing us, all right? So if Frank has any challenge, maybe you should check with your network. Oh, everybody's hearing us. So we can go on, Robert.
Yes, and I've seen a question from Perry Ofori. What if your boss is wrong? I mean,
that's a good question.
That's a good question. Well, we're talking about your desire for influence. Your boss can be wrong on a particular issue, in a particular instance, but your desire for influence and as a matter of fact, when he's wrong, that you need more influence with him because he's wrong, and depending on what the issue is, this wrong is being spread throughout the entire organization. So you need to have significant influence with your boss to have a conversation and to correct this wrong. And that's why you need that influence. And just as we say, the neck turns the head. If you have significant influence, then you become like the neck. And so you are actually turning the entire leadership of the organization. And in that sense, you make more impact than just building a power base around a small group of people in your department. Mm-hmm. I hope, Perry, that answers your
Robert, Stella also asked a question along those lines, but I will have to move to the end. But what do you do if you win with the leaders and the team don't want to go with you? So that's a follow up on that question.
Yeah, I mean, and this is why I gave the example of the executive team.
Yeah.
Because how do you win with your executive team and your followers do not want to go with you? Then your followers have to go along with you. As an executive team, we have decided on the strategic direction for the organization. And we need to go influence our troops on the ground to accomplish this objective. We cannot say that we want to disregard what has been agreed as an executive team so that we go with what our small team is asking us to do. It's important that we uphold the integrity of the team at the top, because really it's the collaboration that happens at the top, the teaming that happens at the top, that filters down throughout the entire organization. And so it's important that we have the right level of influence amongst us as executive team, and that actually helps in turning around the entire organization. I saw Brigitta Holy says that, okay, I thought otherwise, but your explanation makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So that's very interesting. And I mean, just to support Robert, support you. Let me just give you share my personal example with the team so they can understand the point you're making. I used to have a boss, and I've said this in one of the platforms, who actually had a certain behavior that was very repulsive. I mean, a lot of board members were getting upset with his behavior. We were all gossiping about him in the corridor, but nobody wanted to go and tell him what was wrong. But because I had built a kind of relationship with him, one day I went to him, sat with him, discussed with him, and brought to his attention something that actually he was oblivious to. I mean, we call it in leadership the blind side. So actually, all that he was behaving and the impact it was having on all of us in the team, I mean, everybody, was was affected, but because nobody was able to go to him and talk to him and be able to bring his mind to that situation, it was perpetuating. So having that level of influence doesn't mean that you should go and agree with your boss. That's not what Robert is saying. Robert, I believe that's what you're trying to share, right?
No, I mean, yeah, thank you very much for example. That example speaks to it quite right. You know, we when we started looking at who has influenced us, and we gave some examples of what they did. And we talked about the fact that the support they provided us, the fact that they were just there, they showed us respect, they opened doors for us, they gave us access, and sometimes just by our sheer intensity in execution and going the extra mile. Of course, Sam, you have done most of these to build that trust and relationship, which led to this big influence capital you had with your boss. If you were someone who was always shirking responsibility and sitting on the fence and not meeting your side of the bargain, I'm sure your boss will not have any faith even to engage you. But then, because of the actions you took over time, you have built credibility and respect, and you could go and engage your boss and turn the fortunes of their entire organization. Jerry, I can assure you there's still opportunity to build your influence portfolio. So I want to share with you a framework that can help you think about this and really accelerate your development of your leadership influence. And before we do that, I want us to look at some specific case studies. And I will invite you to think of some notable leaders you know of, and the names that come to mind. You can actually type them on chat. I mean, notable leaders that you believe have had a lot of great influence, significant global influence. Type the names in chat in the comment section, because now we're getting into a case study of these leaders and their leadership influence. So out of that, we can unpack a framework that we can also use to develop our leadership. Yes, some names are coming through. I've seen Nelson Mandela.
Yeah. Yeah, Bridgetta says Nelson Mandela.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I also have some leaders on my screen, on my slide.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And for me, the most significant one is the woman with the lady at her back.
Okay, so you have Kofi Annan, we have Oprah, we have Patrick Ewa, we have Bishop Oyedepo. Okay, so those are some of the names, and yours is the woman at the back.
Yes,
that's for me.
The most significant one for me, one of the most significant is the woman with the baby at her back.
John C. Maxwell and Stephen Covey.
Yeah.
We have Jesus had a lot of influence and disciples. Okay, so those are the names you're getting.
Brilliant. So, and I like all the names that are coming through. And I want you to think for a moment, what made it possible for these leaders to have such levels of influence? I mean, whether you think about Jesus, you think about Mandela, Nkrumah, Wangari Maathai, our parents, our mothers, Patrick, Martin Luther King, some of the names, Oprah, Alassane Andani, Jack Welch, all the names, Kofi Annan, all the names that have come up. Because I want to share with you a framework, and I feel that this is defining. It brings everything we've been sharing together, and it makes it easier to build your own leadership influence. So I mean, Sam, my background started out as a finance person before getting into leadership and executive coaching. And so sometimes I tend to think first in finance before I come to leadership. And so, I mean, thinking of this concept, I have a framework, and it's borrowed from finance. And simply because we use the word portfolio. And those of us on the call who are finance specialists, particularly investment specialists, investment analysts, portfolio managers, whenever you think about portfolio construction or how to build a portfolio, there are certain steps we cannot miss. Number one, we need to define our objective. If you really want to develop your leadership influence, it starts with defining your leadership mission. All the leaders you see on the screen, they were so clear about their leadership mission. I mean, you want to be able to influence in a lot of spaces and on a global scale. And it all starts with mission, having a clear mission of what your leadership is about. And I mean, all the pictures I have up there, I mean, we know it and we can speak to it. And some of the leaders that we wrote about, we don't even know them. We know them as we read about them, but we haven't even met them. But then we know what they stood for. And all of us on this call as leaders, we need to define for ourselves clearly what's the purpose of my leadership. That's where influence begins. What's the purpose of my leadership? I mean, at the family level, what's the purpose of my leadership? What am I trying to accomplish here? At the corporate level, what's the purpose of my leadership? In this department, in this office, what's the purpose of my leadership? What am I doing here? That's the number one step in building your leadership influence. If you don't take time to define this for yourself, it becomes a random walk. It's haphazard because you drop a little article of influence here, you drop a little article of influence here, you are not consistent, you delay your progress in building your leadership influence, and you don't get much done. And you'll be amazed that so many leaders haven't taken time to define for themselves what is it that they are trying to accomplish. I mean, for all of you on this call as leaders, I will encourage you to do this exercise. I mean, try and take pen to paper, so long as you can write, and have that exercise of crafting for yourself the purpose for your leadership. You know, it's so clear because for Nkrumah, Africa must unite now. You know, our independence is meaningless. And this is where we are today with the African Free Trade Agreement. You know, we knew of Nelson Mandela. That, I mean, we needed to build a rainbow nation. You know, we knew it with Martin Luther King because we needed to look at people on the basis of their character and their contribution and their virtue, not the color of their skin. You know, we know of Patrick, and he wants to train a new generation of ethical, entrepreneurial leaders who have the ability to confront the challenges we face on this continent. This is what creates leadership influence. Without this, there will always be gaps. And I will encourage all of us to first start by defining for ourselves what we would like to accomplish as leaders. Having defined that, we need to assess our risks. Because anytime you come up with these bold aspirations, these bold purpose, I mean, they involve a lot of risk. You know, Nkrumah faced it. Martin Luther King faced it. Mandela faced it. Patrick, I mean, Wangari Maathai, you have to count the cost and be ready to develop the resilience needed to carry the mission. Sam, I will pause for a moment. If there are any comments coming in, I'll be happy to take them. Before I talk about the other two steps in developing your leadership influence.
All right. So far, well, no comment that needs your attention. People are still giving us the names of people. Yeah. Okay, so Charles says to influence, first define clearly your leadership mission. So maybe it would be good to go ahead and round up on the framework, and then maybe we can take a few more questions as we head into the top of the hour.
So once you've assessed your risks, then you begin to implement. And by implementation, we're going back to the power of our example. And so this is deliberate implementation of your leadership mission by the support and the provision, by your execution and active participation, by clearly communicating, involving others, and being present, the respect, the trust you build with people. And of course, you need to monitor your portfolio. So every time you need to take stock as a leader. And as I said, I mean, if you are leading, you look back and nobody's following, then maybe you are taking a walk. So you need to assess your portfolio. Am I building the right level of influence? How am I doing this? But in all of this, critically, you need to define your mission. You need to assess the risk and execute, and constantly as a leader, monitor your portfolio. And I would like to share an example, my personal case study in one of the spheres of leadership I'm engaged in. And so, Sam, I mean, I used to teach at the Ghana Stock Exchange. I mentioned that my background is in finance, and I've done that for over a decade. And after teaching for a while, I think I started in 2006 or so. After teaching for a while, this is around 2012. I made a decision that this is more than just teaching finance, and my mission is to accelerate the transformation of enterprises operating on the African continent. And to do that, it's important that I shape the aspirations of leaders who run these enterprises. I also came to the conclusion that the biggest challenge facing these enterprises is the underinvestment in the finance function. So I carved out a new mission for myself. I am not just going to teach finance the way I've been teaching in the past 5 years, and I changed a lot of the things that the way I approached the class, how I thought, and how I ended the class. So, for example, I knew that I needed to add value to all these people who came in beyond teaching them finance. And so on the last day of the class, for example, it became like a personal development, personal leadership session. I helped people with their CVs. I counseled a lot of people. We talked about the opportunities in the finance profession. I helped people listen to people's ideas and businesses, and I did a lot of things. I needed to assess the risk, because that meant spending more time even outside the classroom, and that actually also meant that some people who are used to a certain method of teaching will find my class uncomfortable. And one or two people may even think that, I mean, this is not how a finance class should be taught. And I'm not probably a great teacher. And that was a risk that I was taking, but I needed to assess the risk. So over a period of time, I mean, that's how I did this. And this is how I can tell you about my leadership influence. Because at the end of the class, I ended up getting more calls from students who needed help, who going to attend interviews and needed support. who had business ideas and came to me still to help refine and for clarification. It was taking my time. This is unpaid for. But then I was building my leadership influence in another space that I felt was important for my mission. I mean, there were some of the students who came up with business ideas that I funded. I contributed capital, gave loans. Some I haven't seen them again since I gave them the money. But that's the risk I needed to take. But all of these things happened simply because I shifted the mission. It was not just teaching a finance class. I was grooming the next generation of leaders in finance who will help accelerate the transformation of enterprises that are operating on the African continent. And for me, that's how we develop leadership influence. And I go into spaces now and I meet a lot of these students and who are also doing some significant stuff in their own organizations. And we have great relationships. But I could have just gone in as a teacher and teach brilliant finance classes, and that was it. And so it's important for all of us as leaders to define the mission that we would like to see accomplished in the spaces that we find ourselves, assess the risks that we're likely to face so we can develop the resilience needed to tackle these risks. And once we've done it, we begin to execute. But every now and then, we need to take a step back and monitor how our portfolios are doing. I know that all of us on these calls, we have different buckets, we have different portfolios. We have the family portfolio where we're leading. What's the mission for the family? Has that been clearly defined? How are we executing that mission? How are we monitoring that portfolio? In our community, in job, even sometimes we're members of old school associations, we're in church groups. What's the mission? What would you like to see accomplished? That's a question I believe every leader should answer, and that's the beginning of building leadership influence. Sam, I will pause, and if there are any comments, questions, I will take them.
How Simon asked the question, how do I craft a mission? So that's Simon for you. Then Steve, for Sudankwa, I believe that after building influence at the executive level, each executive member should also build influence in their respective departments.
That's
all right.
True.
So, okay. Then number 3, Charles Opon says, for influence, define the mission, assess the risk. Okay, so this is a takeaway that Charles is taking from what you were saying. So those are the comments that I'm seeing from here. So you can go ahead and address them. I loved, Stella says, I love the framework and your example you have shared is very inspiring. So I think people are learning.
Stella. Let me answer that question. How do I define my mission? The other way to think about this, maybe sometimes the word mission has other connotations, but the other way to think about it is, what contributions can you make in the space that you find yourself? What contribution can you make? What value can you add? And most of the time, it goes a little beyond the task that you do on a daily basis. And so, for example, in my case study, I mentioned that, I was supposed to teach finance. And so I go in and I have to teach finance, and we talk about capital structure, and we talk about dividend policy, and we talk about, those of us in finance, not to bore you, but then it's much more than that. So you teach them all of these, and they can't even go through an interview successfully to actually get a job to go and implement this wonderful knowledge that you, this great teacher of finance, has shared with them, then what value have you added? And so, I mean, in my case, it was just a little beyond just doing what has been defined by my job description. I mean, if your leadership mission, your leadership contribution, your leadership value will definitely go beyond your job description. I mean, because your job description may probably say that you have to do these account reconciliations. But sometimes, beyond account reconciliations, you may have the ability to reconcile differences between two other leaders in your department who have been at loggerheads for a very long time. So it's not just about accounts, but we have to think about the contributions we can make to others, the meaning we can bring to the life of others, the value adds that we can, and that's just a simple way of thinking about it. And again, in actually crafting your leadership mission, you just have to start and write it. And over time, as you lead the mission and as you reflect on it, you realize that you begin to refine it. I mean, I just said mine. It just didn't just happen in an instance. I have reflected on it for quite a while and working with it. And so now I'm at a place where I can say it in this manner. But then you need to start. You need to be mindful, be clear in your mind. What is it that I would like to do? What contributions can I make to my world? And that's how we define our mission. And sometimes we also use the word purpose. You know, what's your purpose? It's the same thing. Thank you very much.
Great,
so I will go ahead.
Yes, there is one more question, but maybe you should run up, then we'll come to the questions. And for it's just related, and I think it just, my question is, I operate in an organization that has a mission that is 30 junior, that has a mission. Do I have to define my own mission different from that of the organization? Okay, so that's another question that, but we've crossed the head of the hour. So if you round up with the other ideas, then we can continue with the discussions that are coming up.
Yeah, so let me answer this question directly, because it's so important. Particularly when you are the leader of the organization, your mission, your purpose should be closely aligned to the purpose or mission of the organization. Else you can't lead it. Else you'll not be energized. You will not have the passion to lead that. But at the lower level, yes, you may have a mission that may even be bigger than your current role. And so your role will not necessarily, particularly at the very lower levels within the hierarchy of the organization, be the same or mimic closely the purpose or the mission of the organization. But at very senior levels, you should believe in the mission of the organization and you should be aligned. So that's my answer to that. So what are the key steps we can take? So the practical actions when we have defined our mission, assess the risk, and we're executing some key steps. And I bring you 3 key ideas that I believe we need to take. Number 1, determine to build your influence as soon as you enter a space. Don't wait. Make a conscious decision. You join a new department, you join a new organization, you join a new company, immediately determine to build your influence. Come up with an action plan. This is what I would like to do. This is the kind of influence I would like to have, and begin to engage, participate, show presence, support, and just be a man on a mission, leader on a mission, woman on a mission. Number 2, you need to realize that the moment to build your influence is now. You have only one moment. And so even when on a call like this, I mean, some of the questions you ask, the contributions you make, the questions you're all building influence. So any moment is an opportunity to build influence. And the last one is my challenge to all of us. If you really want to develop the capacity to build influence in any space, take a leadership role in a volunteer organization or community project where all the members of the team are not being paid and they are actually relying on the inspiration and the influence of the leader to get the work done. When you can execute in those spaces because of your influence, trust me, when you enter spaces where there is a clear carrot and stick, you can achieve a lot of stuff. And so my challenge to all of you, if you really want to learn how to build your influence, take a leadership role in a volunteer organization where all the members, I mean, they don't have to follow you. They also have their own bosses to answer to. That's where they get paid. This is just a volunteer assignment. And this is where you begin to learn to listen. You begin to show appreciation for every effort and contribution. You begin to build trust and connect and show empathy and develop relationships that get the work done. And so that's my challenge to you. If you really want to up your capacity, take a leadership role in a volunteer organization. I mean, just to wrap up before we take the questions, I want to say that if you care to lead, then care to build your influence. In leadership, nothing is given, everything is earned. Sam, I hand over to you and let's take questions. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. This has been very interactive where we have, and it is very good. So we didn't have to pause and take the questions. They came as and when. On the question, and we want to just encourage everybody that all these presentations are recorded to have them on our website with the PowerPoint, with the audio, with the video and everything. So go back and look at it. One of the very first sessions we had was leading with your why. And we went through, I shared with you Simon Sinek book, Start With Why, and how you can determine your purpose and your why and lead with a mission. So that I will refer you to go back to that recording on our website to complement the great answers that Robert has already given to us. So the other questions that have come up, well, there are comments. Daniel says, very useful presentation, grateful indeed. Leadership is the cause, all the rest is effect. So that is from Daniel. Brigitta says, please, can I set my personal mission? Eunice Doichi says, I am really learning a lot today. All right, so those are the comments so far that you can comment on those ones, and then we see we need, if there are any more comments, please feel free. If you have any questions, any more ideas you want to share, we're all learning. So please go ahead and share your thoughts as Robert answers Brigitta's question, if she can set her own personal mission.
Yes, indeed. That's what we're all called to do as leaders. You need to set your personal mission. I mean, you cannot lead unless you have defined for yourself what is it that you would like to accomplish with your leadership. And that's the personal mission. I mean, that's you with your own values, your own personality, your own experiences, your own capacity, defining for yourself exactly how you would like to lead your life and the leadership influence you would like to have in this world. I mean, it's something that all of us have to do. And it doesn't, I mean, you just have to make time for it. You don't, it's not like you have to look into the sky. I mean, you're already doing something. So you're already involved, for example, in teaching. You're already involved, you're a doctor, you're attending to people. You're already involved, you're a chief executive, you head a finance unit. You're a head of marketing, you're a head of HR. I mean, these are portfolios of influence already, but you have to make it personal. You need to go beyond the job description and say, this is how I am going to put my personal brand, my personal leadership on the task that has been given to me. And this is where you make it personal and you make it your mission. And that's the difference we're calling for. When you do that, everything changes. This is where organizations come alive. And there are so many organizations. I mean, some of the organizations that we work with, I mean, when we train leaders, when we work with leaders, that's one of the first things we ask leaders to do. Because you need to define for yourself your mission. Sometimes we use other words. Sometimes we even call it your leadership value proposition. What value are you offering? So I'm a member of your team. So what? What do I stand to gain? You know, and remember, your team members are always thinking, what's in it for me? Of course, I'm a finance person, and you know, we've gone beyond this shareholder mentality. Nobody goes to work, going to work to build a great company for a shareholder, or to create a great company and make profits for a shareholder. We go to work for ourselves. That's what this is all about. So you need to tune into the aspirations of your team members and your people, and that's why you define your value proposition. And when you define that, you realize that it resonates with your team members. And that's how come in the story of Martin Luther King, when we read the account, I mean, you will think that his story would only be followed by blacks. I mean, when he delivered the I Have a Dream speech, it said that 25% of the audience were white, because there are others who also believed in what he believed in. You know, and so it's not just his personal mission. Sometimes your personal mission becomes others' personal missions also, because we're all on the same journey. But it's important you define it for yourself and articulate it so you can get others to come and join you to accomplish the big things that we all need to do for ourselves, for our communities, and for our world. And that's what leadership is all about. Thank you very much, Sam. Sam, I can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. So I'm saying we're having very positive. Cynthia say very insightful lessons. We are grateful, sir. Daniel has said very useful presentation. Eunice says I'm really learning a lot today. Rebecca, very insightful. Mike Akambek says very insightful and inspiring. Many thanks. Collinson, William Collinson says, how can I impact, there's a question, note it, we'll come back to it. How can I impact the value of my mission? Okay, that's Collinson. Willis says, very educative and really inspired. God bless you, CTL. Ben says, which of you is the best leader? I don't know which two he's talking about. Thank you so much. I am learning new things that are interesting. And this is from Inu Sajayi, right from Cotonou. Thank you very much for joining us from Cotonou. Adonbuatin says, great delivery, Robert, well done. And Sally says, I bet you must be deliberate about creating the time to execute your personal mission within your job description as a leader of the team. All right, so Harry Cherished, thanks for impacting. Good job, Robert, Team CTL from Doris Ehiate, truly transforming Africa. All right, so those are some of the comments, and I think there were a couple of questions that you probably noted. So if you can address them quickly, how can I impact the value of my mission? I don't know. I think that's the only question. Yeah. The other one was from Ben, which of you is the best leader? I don't know which of the two. So if you can make
great. So, I mean, again, we'll go to our case studies. How can I impact the value in my mission? We go to our case studies. And by the way, thank you. I've had some names on the call. These are friends. And so thank you very much for listening and sharing. Thank you very much. So how do you bring out the value? First, you need to communicate. You need to communicate. I mean, you have your personal mission, and you communicate it all the time, and you find different ways to communicate the same idea, particularly for leaders of organizations. I mean, you have to say it all the time and find new ways to say it at every opportunity. You are sharing the vision. You are sharing the mission. You don't stop. I mean, you share it today, tomorrow you will share it. But you share it in different ways. And that's how come we remember some of these stories, some of these phrases. I mean, whether it's Nkrumah telling us Africa must unite, or our independence is meaningless, or Martin Luther King just in a short space using "I have a dream" so many times and saying it in different ways, which reflects what we all aspire for. So first of all, you need to communicate. The message has to come out there. You have to make it plain. You have to write it on tablets. Just share it. But number two, the power of your example. The power of your example. And this is where your presence becomes important. You would like to listen. You would like to support. You would like to lend a hand. The images that I shared, and just to help you remember, I also use 4 P's there. So it's about participation, actually putting your shoulder to the wheel and executing and taking the barriers out of people's way so that they can also do their best job. That's what leaders do. You take the blocks out of people's way so they can do their best job. And you help them always to realize that this is the mission. You help them also to understand how what they do aligns with the overall mission, and how that inherently even satisfies their own aspirations, because it's important. I mean, we're working with their aspirations. We cannot set a mission or a goal which is different from what our team members aspire for. And so that's what we need to bear in mind. We need to first communicate the vision, make it plain, find new ways always to share the same story. And then we begin with the power of our own example, because you don't want to preach and act differently. So the power of our own example, then we begin to unpack, unblock, support, provide, just being present and helping people out and demonstrating the value in the vision and helping them to realize how this means to them and how actually this mission, this value that you are proposing also satisfies their own aspirations. That way you can get a lot done as a leader. And that's how leaders have done it over and over again. Don't get tired sharing the vision. Never get tired.
Robert, and I want to encourage everybody, please follow us on our Facebook page and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. And once again, I want to encourage you, those who are joining for the first time, we've been doing this every Saturday at 7 p.m. Whether or not you have the message or not, please connect with us. We also record all this and you have it free on our website. So you can go back and listen to other very insightful presentations, all from the leadership perspective. And the objective, as we are here, ZTL, is to make a difference. We want to make a difference in your life. We want to add value to you. We want to make you a better leader. And so please go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook. Okay, a few more comments. We are learning a lot. Danny says, this is great. I am glad I joined the call. Jerry has a question, and I would like Jerry also to go back to the previous recording. We had a full session on emotional intelligence. But Jerry's question is, how do you apply emotional intelligence in managing your team with different behaviors. So Robert, want to note that, and as you do your closing remarks, maybe say a few words about that. Thank you, that's perfect. Charles says, thank you, this is great. Okay, BJ is clarifying his questions. He wants to know between Sam and Robert, who is the best leader? I don't know. I'm not sure Robert even knows. All right. This has been an insightful discussion. That is a free year. Perry Ofori, do these principles apply for all organizations? So 2 questions so that you can close, because we want to respect the time of our followers. We have 5 minutes. The first question is, how do you apply emotional intelligence in managing your team with different behaviors? And Perry wants to know if the principles that you're sharing apply to all organizations. All right. So you want to take those 2 and give us your closing remark, Robert.
Great. So I'll be very quick so we can close on time. Emotional intelligence, you've given a reference. So this is what I would say. We had a training program. We had a leadership training for a group of leaders. And one of them, when we were taking the feedback, this is after a couple of months. And so we got together again on call and just trying to find out what has happened after the training. And the person shared this illustration, and I want to use it. It will help. So first of all, we need to acknowledge that we have different members in the team. They have different motivations, different aspirations, different skills, different hopes, different dreams. And this is what the person said. He said that after the training, I mean, you gave me keys. And I realized that each person had a different padlock. So I also needed to find different keys so that I could open each padlock. And this is what emotional intelligence is about, that you being able to recognize first your role, being aware of your own emotions. And then number 2, also being socially present to acknowledge and to see the capacity, the emotions, the behaviors, and the values of all the other team members as relevant, and you finding different keys to open these different padlocks. So this is the illustration I'll give to you. And sometimes we use the word, and it's a big word, and we use it in different ways. But all I can say is that think of it this way: that each person has a different padlock. And as a leader, do not make the mistake of using the same key to open each padlock. You will run into problems. Unfortunately, it's even possible that on a particular occasion, maybe one of your key may get stuck in one of the padlocks, and you cannot get it back to go and use it on another. So just make sure that you have different keys, have different approaches to dealing with different people. That's very important. And Sam, I would want to say a big thank you because this has been an engaging session. I have learned a lot from all the questions that came in and the comments as well. All I will want to say is that if you care to lead, then care to build your influence. Because in leadership, nothing is given, everything is earned. Without influence, you will sit in a meeting and your ideas will go nowhere, even though you have the best ideas. And so it's the influence you have with the people that matters. Also, we need to bear in mind that we have different spheres. So we shouldn't think of leadership influence only in the corporate world. We have to think of it also within our families. That's the first stage where we as parents, as leaders, as brothers, as sisters, demonstrate and exhibit our first influence. And we need to be deliberate about it. So we have to define our mission, assess our risk, and continue to invest in building the portfolio and monitor our progress. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert. Absolutely fascinating, very, very enriching. Thank you so much. And we want to thank all of you for another participatory and interactive session on the leadership platform. Next week, I will be leading the discussion next week, and we are going to talk about how you can break the lid on your leadership. Every one of us has a limit and a lid. How do you break the lid so that you can expand your influence beyond where you are now? So make a date with us next week. And once we share, please share with your friends, share with your team members. We encourage the leaders here to please share with your members, your subordinates, your followers, your bosses. The more all of us understand leadership and the more all of us are growing together, the better the organization becomes, the better our country becomes, and the better our continent will become. We want to ensure that all of us understand leadership so that we are leading well. Don't look to somebody, but decide for yourself, I want to grow as a leader and become a better leader. If all of us make that resolution, Africa will be a better place. Thank you all for joining us. Follow us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channels, and share with all your friends and family, and invite everybody to next week's leadership platform when we discuss another aspect of leadership. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
There is a popular saying in leadership that if you think you're leading and there's nobody following you, you are only going on a walk. On this platform, you are going to learn principles of leadership. You are going to encounter different leaders. You are going to learn about how you can grow as a leader, how you can make an impact. My name is Samuel Eyim, and I'm the host for the leadership platform. I am a leadership coach, a lawyer by profession, a John C. Maxwell certified coach. I have been in corporate life in senior positions for several years, and now I run the Center for Transformational Leadership, where we train and coach leaders to become better leaders. And I invite you to go on a journey with us as we discuss the subject of leadership in the coming weeks.
This and every Saturday, you have opportunity to ask questions, share your views on important leadership matters.